Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menyaksikan Niaga AWANI bersama saya Nina Rozman. Seperti biasa jam ini kami akan bawakan pelbagai rangkuman berita niaga ekonomi termasuk juga dengan pasaran semasa untuk anda fahami bagaimanakah lanskap ekonomi ketika ini dari tempatan hingga ke antarabangsa bersama ahli panel jemputan. Dan saya akan mulakan dengan laporan pertama di mana kenaikan harga makanan menyebabkan tekanan kewangan yang ketara kepada isi rumah. Berdasarkan tinjauan ranjau sepanjang jalan, tinjauan berulang tentang impak kos sara hidup pasca pandemik terhadap isi rumah berpendapatan rendah di Kuala Lumpur oleh UNICEF. 8 daripada 10 isi rumah bergelut untuk menjana pendapatan yang mencukupi bagi memenuhi keperluan asas mereka. Dan jumlah itu lebih tinggi daripada 7 daripada 10 yang dilaporkan semasa pandemik. 90% isi rumah sedang bergelut dengan kesan kenaikan kos sara hidup, terutamanya mengenai harga makanan, manakala kira-kira 50% menganggap keadaan kewangan mereka semakin merosot berbanding 2022.
Then we ask them, how do you cope? We work harder. That's why I say this is a story of resilience, not just tunggu or hope things work out. No, they work to make things better. So how do you manage the increase? Of course I work harder, I work longer, I do double jobs. I reduce my expenditure, either on non-essential items or I reduce my food intake. And the food reduction of food intake is translated to the children. One out of 2 children eat less than 3 times a day. If this is a mitigating factor, how to reduce? Which means it would have impact on children well-being in the long run. Where we put there 1 or 2.
Pendapatan pendengah bulanan isi rumah negara telah melonjak kepada hampir RM3,000, meningkat 32% berbanding sebelum COVID-19. Manakala kadar pengangguran pula menurun dari 12% pada awal 2021 kepada 5.9% pada Oktober tahun lalu. Biarpun ini menandakan pemulihan yang ketara dalam usaha menangani kesan ekonomi akibat pandemik, kemiskinan masih ketara, terutamanya dalam kalangan wanita, kanak-kanak dan individu kurang upaya OKU.
Itu dapatan tinjauan bertajuk Ranjau Sepanjang Jalan, tinjauan berulang tentang impak kos sara hidup pasca pandemik terhadap isi rumah berpendapatan rendah di Kuala Lumpur yang dijalankan UNICEF dari 14 Oktober 2023 hingga 16 November 2023. Kemiskinan kekal tinggi pada 41% pada Oktober 2023 walaupun mencatat penurunan berbanding awal 2021. Dalam kalangan ketua isi rumah wanita, kadar kemiskinan adalah pada 59%, manakala kadar kemiskinan tertinggi direkod dalam kalangan isi rumah yang diketuai oleh orang kurang upaya iaitu 67%. Kadar kemiskinan tegar ialah 8% dan tertinggi dalam kalangan isi rumah yang diketuai oleh orang kurang upaya iaitu 17%.
Despite improvement in labour market and earnings, poverty still remains high. One has to remember, poverty rate in KL, one of the richest states in Malaysia, is less than 2%, so 1.4, 1.5%. Poverty rate in low-cost flats in KL is 41%. It's much higher, although it reduced but from 45% during pandemic. It reduced but is alarmingly very high. Among female-headed households, it's about 60%. So 6 out of 10 live below poverty line.
Tinjauan tersebut turut mendapati terdapat keperluan mendesak untuk meningkatkan perlindungan sosial dan program bantuan terutamanya dengan 40% pekerja tidak mempunyai perlindungan sosial berasaskan pekerjaan dengan kadar tertinggi dicatat dalam kalangan mereka yang bekerja sendiri iaitu 92%.
For us, easy to remember makcik kiap. Now, 92% of makcik kiap or those who work in informal sector are not covered, which means when we do account 3, for instance, EPF withdrawal, nobody, majority of them do not benefit. If they go to work, something happens to them, they are not protected.
Bagi menangani isu-isu yang dibangkitkan, UNICEF menggariskan beberapa cadangan dan dasar, antaranya pemberian allowance jagat untuk semua kanak-kanak dan orang kurang upaya. Ini dilihat perkara terpenting dalam menyediakan tahap jaminan pendidikan dan pendapatan selain melengkapkan perlindungan penjagaan kesihatan dan pekerjaan yang sedia ada.
So, first 1,000 days from the stomach until the first 2 years, every children in Malaysia would get cash assistance, cash allowance on a monthly period to be given to the mother. Across is very little and easily affordable. We put the number. Number 2, the most deprived among the deprived is person with disability. Not everybody get assistance. We suggest universal allowance. Everybody will get cash allowance, monthly allowance, including to their caregiver.
Bagi kanak-kanak, UNICEF mencadangkan RM200 allowance untuk semua ibu mengandung setiap bulan sehinggalah usia 2 tahun dan ini memerlukan peruntukan kira-kira RM2.2 bilion setahun bersamaan 0.12% daripada KDNK. Manakala untuk OKU, kos yang dianggarkan ialah kira-kira RM3.2 bilion atau 0.17% daripada KDNK berdasarkan jumlah OKU yang berdaftar ketika ini.
Baik, untuk kita mengulas lebih dalam mengenai kajian ataupun dapatan utama daripada UNICEF sendiri iaitu tinjauan berulang tentang impak kos sara hidup pasca pandemik terutama terhadap kumpulan yang berpendapatan rendah di Kuala Lumpur KL. Kita mempersilakan sendiri iaitu Ketua Pelidik Kajian UNICEF iaitu Dr. Muhammad Abdul Khalid. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Dr. kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama kami dalam studio semalam. Sibuk di Kuala Lumpur membuat pembentangan mengenai laporan yang terkini. Dan kali ini dalam studio untuk kita tahu ini adalah laporan sambungan daripada dapatan kajian yang pernah dilakukan oleh doktor sendiri dan kita lihat ia telah membawakan antara peratusan angka yang terkini dan semasa dapat kita saksikan bagaimanakah sebenarnya ia realiti kehidupan dan juga tahap kemiskinan di Malaysia ketika ini. Dan kita tahu kemiskinan tidak boleh dilihat daripada satu dimensi iaitu berpendapatan, gaji, salari, tapi ia merangkumi pelbagai dimensi seperti yang ditekankan juga dalam kajian UNICEF ini sendiri daripada aspek ataupun dimensi kos sara hidup, kesihatan, pendidikan, termasuk juga dengan iaitu sehinggalah kesejahteraan sosial psikologi yang telah ditekankan dalam laporan ini juga. Jadi bantu kami faham bagaimana tahap kemiskinan ataupun situasi semasa daripada segi aspek kemiskinan terhadap setiap dimensi ini dan antara dimensi ini apakah antara aspek yang paling parah sebenarnya?
Apakah aspek yang paling parah bergantung kepada siapa yang kena. Kalau kita lihat kadar kemiskinan di seluruh Malaysia lebih kurang 5%, 6%. Di Kuala Lumpur kurang pada 2%. Tapi di dalam Kuala Lumpur itu sendiri ada yang kelompok di mana kadar kemiskinan itu tinggi. Contohnya di flat cost rendah. Kadar kemiskinan 40%. Kita kena ingat, ini bagi saya dia penting. Di KL, kadar kemiskinan kurang daripada 2%. Di dalam KL, di flat cost rendah 40%. Sekarang kita suka tengok averages, kita lupa. Ada yang susah. Kita tak cakap pasal orang kat Kuala Kedah ke kat Gua Musang. Ni tengah-tengah negeri yang paling kaya di Malaysia. Kalau KL ni satu negara, dia negara high income country dah. Kita nak capai hebatnya. KL dah high income country since 2004-2005. So kemiskinan dari segi pendapatan di segelintir orang di Kuala Lumpur masih tinggi, 40%. Itu dari segi keuangan. Bermaksud kalau di KL siapa income isi rumah kurang daripada lebih kurang 2008 consider miskin. Di flat cost rendah 40% dikira miskin. Di kalangan kanak-kanak, campur semua budak-budak kat situ, berapa ramai hidup dalam di bawah kadar kemiskinan? 41%. Ramai. Jadi 4 pada 10 kanak-kanak kita nampak. Ni bukan tak nampak, ni nampak ni. Pasal daripada dalam KL. Hidup dalam kemiskinan. Itu dari segi satu sudut. Dia memberi kesan. Macam kajian kita buat, Nina pun tahu, bila duit tak cukup ni, makan kurang, tekanan mental pun lagi tinggi. You cannot make options, cannot make choices. Tak ada option. Dari segi kesihatan juga, kita boleh lihat kadar kemiskinan. Di flat cost rendah, bila kita tengok, dulu UNICEF ada juga buat 2018, kadar budak-budak tak cukup tinggi, bantut. Saya tak cukup makan. Lebih kurang 1/5 kanak-kanak di KL tak cukup tinggi untuk umur dia. Kita panggil bahasa orang putih kita stunting lah. Bahasa Melayu senang kita kata ketot lah. Tak cukup tinggi. Ini bukan tak cukup tinggi 2 cm tak boleh skor bola. Jadi maksud perkembangan otak. Yang akan beri kesan bila dia kerja nanti masa dia masuk belajar. Pada kadar 20%, ini adalah kadar nasional juga. 1 daripada 5 budak-budak di Malaysia ada problem malnutrition. Kalau kita compare Malaysia dengan negara yang income dah lebih kurang Malaysia, negara lain about 7%. Kita 20%. Ghana lagi better daripada kita. Negara kat Afrika. Dari segi kesihatan, ramai budak-budak kita miskin. Bukan hanya di flat kos rendah. Antara negeri daerah yang paling tinggi budak-budak tak sihat adalah Putrajaya. Kadar bantut di Putrajaya paling tinggi, antara nombor 3 dekat Malaysia. Itu dari segi kesihatan. Jadi impact paling teruk kepada budak-budak. You cannot do well, you would not do well. Dari segi pendidikan juga kepada kanak-kanak. Minggu lepas World Bank ada buat report. 40% kanak-kanak kita ada learning poverty. Umur dia compare dengan umur budak-budak yang sama di negara lain, mereka belajar perkembangan apa lagi baik daripada budak kita. They call it learning poverty 40%. So kita tengok dari dimensi income, pendapatan, daripada segi kesihatan, dari segi pendidikan, kita ada multi-dimensional poverty, pelbagai dimensi. So bila kita selalu dengar poverty dah kurang dah, tak ada dah, tak betul itu. Kita tak jujur kepada diri kita sendiri.
Dan bercakap mengenai poverty, Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim ada juga menyatakan bahawa kerajaan akan cuba menoktahkan, iaitu menoktahkan meaning zero poverty pada hujung tahun 2023. Dan kalau kita lihat daripada data ini menunjukkan, kita lihat walaupun pendapatan masih meningkat, tapi kemiskinan bukan tegar secara keseluruhan masih tinggi pada kadar 41% pada Oktober 2023, namun jatuh sedikit berbanding 45% pada Mac 2021, dan itu adalah antara angka-angka yang dapat kita saksikan. Tapi Menteri Ekonomi Rafizi Ramli berkata angka sebenar kemiskinan boleh diperoleh selepas sistem pakalan data utama padu dapat dikemaskini sepenuhnya. Dan kalau kita bercakap mengenai usaha untuk menoktahkan kemiskinan bukan mudah, terutama selepas pandemik COVID-19, sebab kita tahu kos makin meningkat, dan untuk kita menangani iaitu atau membendung masalah kemiskinan itu makin susah sebab orang tengok barang meningkat, perkhidmatan, kos operasi semua meningkat. Dan kalau kita lihat daripada data ini, kalau boleh saya tunjukkan, kalau boleh kita mirakan sedikit, menunjukkan di sini daripada dapatan UNICEF ini menunjukkan okey, bagi ketua isi rumah keseluruhan KIR, sebenarnya mereka lebih prefer gaji yang lebih tinggi sebanyak 40%. Namun untuk keseluruhan ketua isi rumah kurang upaya, mereka lebih prefer bantuan tunai. Keseluruhan KIR, ketua isi rumah untuk keseluruhan dan wanita kebanyakan gaji lebih tinggi, manakala OKU lebih prefer bantuan tunai. Dan kita nak lihat juga ada beberapa cadangan dasar di sini. Banyak yang dah ada, tetapi kalau kita nak cakap kalau senang memang dah laksanakan lama, tetapi kita tahu itu bukan mudah. Jadi apakah antara langkah pertama yang boleh dilakukan di fasa awal? What is the first step toward making a great change?
What is the first step? First step, kena akui lah ada kemiskinan. Kita tak boleh kata kemiskinan tak ada. Dah titik dah. Itu tak betul. Inspirasi untuk mengurangkan, menoktahkan itu bagus. Baik. Tapi kita tak boleh dalam khayalan lah. Sebab utama mengapa kita buat kajian ini, pasal dulu kita nak tengok impact cost pandemic, impact pandemic. Macam mana dia handle impact pandemic? Now pandemic dah habis. Ekonomi dah buka. Income naik. Tapi adakah income naik ni, ekonomi naik ni translate memberi manfaat kepada orang yang paling tertekan? Itu baru struktur ekonomi yang kita mahu. Struktur nak tahu ekonomi ni baik tak baik, satu saya bagi saya indikator. Tengok budak-budak ni okey tak okey. Kalau 40% budak-budak dekat flat kos rendah hidup miskin, 51% budak-budak di flat miskin tak cukup makan, 1 daripada 2 makan kurang daripada 3 hari. Bermaksud, Nina, 1 daripada 2 budak-budak yang kita nampak ni di KL, di flat kos rendah, dia tidur lapang, dia pergi sekolah lapang. Then how can we say kita dah notakan? How can we say kita dah negara maju? Itu tak betul. Jadi first step, Nina tanya, apa perlu buat? Kita kena admit, kita kena akui kita masih ada problem. Ni tak perlu malu. Kita nak negara membangun bagus, nak negara kaya bagus, nak bawa AI bagus. Tetapi kena pastikan orang yang susah pun mendapat manfaat. Tak ada artinya kita negara kaya, di tengah-tengah KL, ramai yang miskin. Budak-budak lapang pergi sekolah. Itu tak bagus. Jadi first step, acknowledge we have a problem. Oh, kita boleh selesaikan. Kalau tidak, syok sendiri.
Dan bercakap mengenai pertumbuhan kanak-kanak terbantut, dan kita lihat dalam tanda cadangan dasar. Kalau boleh saya tunjukkan sekali lagi daripada grafik ataupun data ini untuk kita mirakan, iaitu cadangan dasar, allowance penjagaan untuk semua kanak-kanak. Tempoh paling penting dalam perkembangan kanak-kanak adalah pada hari 1000 hari pertama itu. Dan kita lihat kos berpatutan menyediakan RM200 sebulan untuk semua ibu mengandung dan kanak-kanak berumur bawah 2 tahun memerlukan peruntukan lebih kurang RM2.2 bilion setahun. Itu baru kanak-kanak saja yang bersamaan dengan 0.12% daripada KNK. Dan sepatutnya allowance ni bukan kanak-kanak saja tapi untuk ibu mereka, penjaga dia. Dan bercakap mengenai menarik sebab kita tahu dasar dan polisi kebanyakan ada sebenarnya tertera kepada golongan dewasa kebanyakannya berbanding kanak-kanak. Dan semalam Haris Ashraf, rakan tugas dan termasuk Datuk Madeline Berma, mereka antara yang membincangkan antara semasa Dok tengah berbincang dekat sana, kami pun discuss kat sini untuk respon. Dan apa yang menariknya, Dr. Madeline kongsikan bahawa itu sebenarnya ia harus memang bermula pada kanak-kanak, pelaburan, sebab ada setengah memikirkan untuk menjaga kanak-kanak ni sebenarnya as cost, tapi mereka ni adalah pelaburan untuk masa depan. Kalau kita lihat, dia kata patutnya bukan tunggu dah sampai miskin baru kita nak, tapi kita patut mula daripada kanak-kanak. Apakah pelaburan daripada segi aspek pendidikan, kesihatan dan juga kesejahteraan mereka. Bagaimana Dok dapat melihat kepada perkara ini, kepentingan signifikannya untuk kita menyedari, kenal pasti bahawa kanak-kanak ni adalah masa depan kita. Kita harus uruskan kemiskinan bukan daripada apabila jatuhnya kita boleh cakap gejala ni, tapi apabila mereka mula 1000 hari pertama itu.
10 hari pertama adalah tempoh yang paling penting untuk budak tu. 6 bulan dalam perut, betul 2 tahun. Ngam-ngam 1000 hari. Untuk tolong budak ni dan tolong mak dia. Kalau nutrition tak cukup ketika ini, you tak boleh reverse. Umur mai dah 5 tahun, kalau dia tak tinggi, dia tak boleh reverse dah. Satu dunia, budak-budak ada potensi untuk tinggi pada tahap yang sama. Tak kira umur, tak kira mak apa kerja apa, tak ada. Lepas itu dia tak boleh reverse. Jadi pemakanan pada konsep, pada tahap awal ini adalah paling penting. So kita cadangkan bagi RM200, kita beranak setiap tahun 400 ribu lah. So untuk 1000 hari, less than 2 years, kita nak bagi 200, cost dia about 2.2 billion. Ada duit tak ada duit? Lebih daripada duit kita ada. Saya bagi contoh. Subsidi kita nak bagi, tolak bantuan, subsidi dia lebih kurang 40 bilion. Majority adalah subsidi minyak. Katakan subsidi minyak 40 bilion. 35% pergi dekat orang kaya, T20 Bawa BMW pun minyak kuning, bagus dapat. Lebih kurang orang kaya lebih kurang dapat 12-13 bilion. You ambil sikit, tak ambil semua. You ambil sikit, you bagi 2.2 bilion kepada orang miskin. Affordable. Second, kita tak mau bayar dekat orang susah ataupun kena kuat sikit lah. Orang kaya kita bagi macam-macam. Saya bagi contoh, Nina, kita jual EV tahun lepas dengan tahun 2022. Saya Menteri Kewangan sebelum tu, dia bagi tax exemption. Kita jual lebih kurang 15,000 EV. You beli EV, sales tax tak ada, excise duty tak ada, road tax tak ada, import duty tak ada. Satu EV, you save lebih kurang 150,000. Depend on model. You beli Porsche pun you tak bayar tax. You beli Viva, you kena. You beli Azia, you kena. Makcik Kia beli, kena. Kalau seorang dapat tax exempted, basically kita subsidize dia 150,000, ada 15,000, more than enough. You tax EV, you bagi kat orang susah. It's not issue about duit. Isu dia adalah kita ada pemikiran kurafat di antara kita. Saya pakai perkataan yang keras sikit. Staff saya suka pakai perkataan tu. Dongeng lah. Bagi orang susah cash ni, dia tak erti pakai. Itu tak betul. Bagi cash, bagi tunai adalah yang paling terbaik. Kita kadang kita ingat orang yang pendapatan rendah, B40, orang susah, dia tak erti jaga duit. Bagi dia duit, laki pisau okok ke, tukang sport rim ke, itu tak betul. Masa COVID, kita kaji isi rumah yang sama. Kita follow dia, kita pergi rumah dia, check. Duit yang dapat bantuan tunai itu dia buat apa? Dia buat 2 benda. Benda pertama dia buat, beli barang dapur. Makanan lah. Benda kedua dia buat adalah pendidikan untuk anak-anak. Tidak ada sikit lah. Siapa pun, orang kaya pun tak erti pakai duit juga. Ada ketirisan. Tapi majoriti pakai benda yang baik. Kita tak boleh ingat pembuat dasar kita yang pandai. Apa yang Nina lebih tahu apa yang Nina perlukan kan. So bagi cash kepada mereka. Tak payah bagi aku masuk ke akaun kena buat benda ni, tak payah. Bagi cash. They know what to do. That's why kita cadangkan beri bantuan tunai.
Dan setakat ini kalau kita nak teliti juga masalah kemiskinan ni mungkin masih berterusan dan semakin melebar. Kita tak nak jurang-jurang di pada setiap negeri ini akan timbul. Tapi pandangan Dok sendiri, apakah lagi yang masih menjadi cabaran di setiap pelbagai dimensi ini? Kita tahu daripada kanak-kanak daripada segi penjagaan, kesihatan, pendidikan, tapi daripada pendapatan ada setengah berfikiran okey kalau kita dah dapat pendapatan gaji yang berbaik tetapi tak apalah, tak payah fikir pasal perlindungan sosial. Tapi itu salah. Ramai yang sekarang memikirkan perlindungan sosial untuk melihat kepada caruman, KWSP, bagaimana untuk kita lihat keseimbangan antara mendapat gaji yang berkualiti, bermaruah, termasuk juga dengan perlindungan sosial yang mampu menjaga kesejahteraan kita ke lebih tahap yang lebih baik. Bagaimana?
Jadi pada bajet tahun lepas ada dikatakan juga kerajaan akan memperluaskan skim perlindungan pekerja. Itu satu inisiatif yang baik dan dalam laporan kami diharapkan ia berlaku secepat mungkin. Kerana ketika ini kita lihat ramai dah balik kerja. Dah kerja balik dah, ekonomi dah buka, ramai dah kerja balik. Tapi 40% tak ada EPF, tak ada SOKSO. Di antara yang bekerja sendiri, contohnya kita dulu suka cakap makcik Kiah, 92% daripada makcik Kiah di tinjauan kami tak ada EPF, tak ada SOKSO. Maksud dia kalau dia pergi bawa kereta nak pergi jual nasi lemak tu apa jadi? Tak ada bantuan. Kalau pekerja formal boleh minta SOKSO, anything happen. Kalau retire pekerja formal kita ada EPF. Depa tak ada EPF. Baru ni kerajaan announce akaun 3. Jadi boleh buat keluar duit. 92% daripada yang kami kaji ni tak akan mendapat manfaat because dia tak ada EPF. Sebab undang-undang kita banyak orang dah cadangkan dan kerajaan pun sebut dia akan buat, diharapkan dia buat cepat lah. Pekerja di sektor formal, you kerja masak mi kat hotel lah. Masak mi, you ada EPF SOKSO, wajib. You jual mi kat tepi jalan, you tak payah buat. Kerja yang sama. Jadi cadangan adalah semua pekerja, tak kira sektor, tak kira tempat, harus mencarum EPF dan SOKSO.
Dan kita lihat juga antara, kalau boleh saya tunjukkan sikit dapatan kajian ni, menunjukkan poin nombor 4 di sini. Kalau Dok kita lihat keluarga berpendapatan rendah menghadapi cabaran lebih besar untuk mendapatkan bukan sahaja pendidikan yang berkualiti, malah pendidikan itu sendiri. Dan bagaimana kita lihat prospek ibu bapa semakin bimbang atas pendidikan mereka. Dan kita lihat iaitu menurut apa yang dikeluarkan oleh World Bank menunjukkan dapatan kajian itu sistem di Malaysia masih memerlukan lebih banyak sedikit reformasi daripada segi penstrukturan untuk meningkatkan lagi iaitu sistem education di Malaysia ini. Jadi macam mana pandangan Dok mengenai perkara ini?
Macam tadi kita start discussion lah. Dia banyak dimension yang boleh buat lah. Kita pun ada banyak-banyak menteri. Bukan ada satu menteri buat semua. So untuk health, saya rasa isu pokok dah kita kena akui kita ada problem. Tak boleh kata tak mau tengok report lah, kita nak kaji dulu lah, kita nak tengok data lain dulu lah. Tak boleh. Kita tak akan sampai perfection. Banyak orang dah cakap it's time for action lah. Ini laporan, bukan laporan yang pertama yang UNICEF buat. Ramai orang dah buat dah. Isu kemiskinan, Ungku Aziz cakap lama dah. Tapi apa Ungku Aziz cakap? Untuk menghuraikan, untuk menyelesaikan. Sama apa yang kami cakap. Bagi budak-budak makan.
Tetapi adakah menariknya kalau kita nak lihat daripada dua ini? Macam mungkin orang fikir, sekarang ni ada yang fight, pendidikan berkualiti lebih penting. Tapi mungkin dia kata, pendidikan yang kumpulan isi rumah yang berpendapatan rendah, you guys get education lah dulu. Tapi kita tak nak yang itu gap ataupun stereotip macam tu. Jadi pandangan. Betul.
Saya suka perkataan Nina pakai, stereotip. Banyak stereotip. Ramai macam itulah. Kami tak pakai perkataan stereotip, kami pakai perkataan khurafat. Dongeng, cerita.
Panas tu.
Ya. Tapi itu betul. Contohnya, masa ada satu kami buat kajian ni, kami panggil pembuat dasar, salah satu cadangan yang mereka berikan, mereka ni anak ramai. So jangan bagi anak ramai. Itu tak betul. Misconception ni, saya rasa salah satu yang kami cuba tonjolkan. Berapa ramai seorang ibu tu, berapa ramai anak yang dia ada kat flat sekolah rendah? Orang kata 7 lah, 8 ke, 6 ke, majoriti 2. Secara purata hanya 2. Yang ada lebih daripada 5, ada je 6%. Orang susah lah ni, anak dah kurang dah. Saya dah tahu nak bagi kualiti pendidikan, nak jaga elok. Di Terengganu pun tak sampai 3. Di Kedah 2.6, 2.7. Jadi kita kadang duk ingat depa ni tak erti tak erti jaga anak, tak erti jaga duit. Lepas tu bantuan kita nak bagi pun macam tak ikhlas, tak boleh. To ensure economy adalah inklusif, the playing field must be fair, must be level. And budak-budak ni, kita patut berbangga dengan mereka. Kalau kita tengok prasekolah, hanya 70% masuk prasekolah, 30% tak masuk. 30 bermaksud mereka start lambat. Masuk sekolah lambat. Bila masuk sekolah, lapang. Mak bapak tak cukup duit. Tetapi, bila kita tengok result SPM mereka, kita buat kajian, kita tengok result SPM, despite pergi sekolah lapang, tidur lapang, masuk sekolah lambat, tuition susah, makanan tak berkhasiat, makan Maggi makin banyak, apa result mereka? Result mereka lebih bagus daripada purata nasional. Now, imagine, start sekolah awal, makan dapat bagus. Mak bapak kita bagi bantuan insentif, lebih kita membantu, bukan bantu kepada orang kaya bagi EV merepek ni. What will happen? We're going to produce a lot of scientists. We're going to produce a lot of doctors. We're going to produce a lot of productive Malaysian. Level playing field di Malaysia adalah tidak adil.
Dan mungkin untuk kita mengakhiri perbincangan ini sangat menarik. Dapatan kajian ni kalau kita lihat memang banyak data angka, tapi kalau kita boleh ringkaskan, rangkumkan ranjau sepanjang jalan ini menunjukkan bahawa realiti Malaysia, bahawa memang pendapatan salari kita mungkin sebagai rakyat Malaysia banyak dan meningkat, tetapi realitinya kita masih miskin dalam aspek-aspek lain daripada segi kos sara hidup, kesihatan, pendidikan, dan ini adalah antara perkara yang perlu kita teliti dengan segera dan perlunya ada boleh action ataupun tindakan yang lebih tegas. Dan sekali lagi, mungkin last sekali, akhir sekali, keputusan kajian ni baru je you present semalam, mungkin baru awal, tapi kita nak lihat bagaimana untuk melihat kepada kajian you yang seterusnya, kerana kita tahu masalah masih ada dan kajian pun akan dikeluarkan, diterbitkan untuk kita lihat sedikit cerminan bagaimanakah realitinya suasana kos sara hidup terutamanya di Malaysia dan Kuala Lumpur. Apakah aspek komponen lain yang akan disepadukan untuk kajian seterusnya? Apa yang sepatutnya menjadi aspek utama?
Saya rasa macam Zakbar katalah, kemiskinan banyak pengemis. Tapi kemiskinan antara kemiskinan paling parah adalah kemiskinan jiwa. Mungkin jiwa dia orang yang buat dasar tu kita kena tukar sikit. Mungkin kalau saya nak cakap sikit, Nina, apa last word about this study? What's the positive thing about this study? Positive this study adalah sikap, sebab itu kami pakai ranjau sepanjang jalan. Ni homage kepada Shannon Ahmad, dia tulis buku pasal pesawah moden. Dalam buku tu sama, kita nampak ni pun sama. Kecekalan isi rumah yang kami tu. Susah. Ranjau ada lepas COVID lah dengan kos sara hidup. Never give up. Tak pernah. Cuba yang terbaik untuk anak-anak, cuba yang terbaik. Sebab itu tadi Nina kata, apa yang mereka perlukan? Bukan bantuan. Gaji yang lebih tinggi. Untuk membantu sendiri, berdikari, cekal, resilient. That's a positive. That every Malaysian, terutama yang pembuat dasar, harus follow what these people, the value of these people.
Yes, we need to stay agile, resilient to plan and execute to the best. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan itu dah hantar ucapan daripada Dr. Muhammad Abdul Khalid, merupakan Ketua Pendidik Kajian UNICEF. Sudah tentu semua perbincangan ini akan kami rangkumkan dalam astroawani.com dan semua platform digital Astro Awani. Dan jangan ke mana-mana, banyak lagi laporan yang akan kami bawakan selepas ini.
Ready? Hello keluarga Astro. Nikmati Heroes, saluran komplementari yang membawakan anda bintang-bintang ternama. Adegan paling mendebarkan. Aksi-aksi terhebat.
Now help me save the world.
We're all gonna die. It's not today.
Fire! Yes, sir.
Dan mereka juga menawan hati. Stream bila-bila masa, cara yang anda mahu. Momen kepewiraan yang menyatukan kita. Bersedia untuk Heroes. Percuma untuk semua pelanggan Astro.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutama dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Seterusnya, peminjam Perbadanan Tabung Pendidikan Tinggi Nasional atau PTPTN digesa merebut peluang insentif diskaun bayaran balik pinjaman.
Fenomena Equinox menjadikan bumi dan matahari berada pada jarak paling dekat dalam sistem solar.
Malaysia berjaya membanteras jenayah berkaitan dadah bernilai RM990 juta sejak 2019.
Jangan meletakkan harapan tinggi berhubung soal mencari jawapan pesawat Malaysia Airlines MH370 yang hilang 10 tahun lepas.
Bersih suku pertama berakhir 31 Mac 2024. Dufu Teknologi Corporation Berhad menyusut 59% kepada RM4.4 juta berbanding RM10.9 juta pada tahun lalu berikutan penurunan hasil berkaitan pemacu cakra keras HDD. Hasil bagi suku berkenaan juga merosot sebanyak 22% kepada RM57.9 juta berbanding RM74.2 juta bagi suku sama tahun sebelumnya. KPJ Healthcare Berhad bersedia membuka pejabat perwakilan yang pertama di Dhaka, Bangladesh bagi memudahkan pesakit dari negara itu mendapatkan rawatan di mana-mana hospital kumpulan KPJ di Malaysia. Jelas kumpulan KPJ, pembukaan pejabat perwakilan itu dijadualkan pada suku ketiga 2024 selaras dengan komitmen untuk menyediakan penyelesaian penjagaan kesihatan yang boleh diakses. Untung bersih pada suku pertama tahun kewangan 2024 Valesto Energy Berhad dijangka meningkat melebihi 3 kali ganda berbanding tempoh sama tahun lalu apabila kesemua pelantar penggerudian kumpulan itu digunakan sepenuhnya. Maybank Investment Bank Maybank IB berkata, untung bersih kumpulan itu dijangka mencecah antara RM45 juta hingga RM50 juta berbanding RM14.22 juta yang dicatatkan pada suku sama tahun sebelumnya. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astroawani.com serta daganus.com.
Jabatan Perangkaan Malaysia melaporkan indeks harga pengeluar perkhidmatan IHPRP catat 115.8 mata pada suku pertama 2024, meningkat 1% sama seperti suku keempat 2023. Menurut Ketua Perangkawan Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzi Mahidin, semua subsektor catat pertumbuhan pada suku pertama 2024 kecuali indeks pengangkutan yang kekal tidak berubah.
Menerusi satu kenyataan, Muhammad Uzair memberitahu subsektor kesenian, hiburan dan rekreasi menyaksikan peningkatan 7.5% berbanding 5.5% pada suku keempat 2023. Disumbangkan peningkatan 2.1% dalam aktiviti hiburan dan rekreasi lain. Bagi indeks penginapan, aktiviti perkhidmatan makanan dan minuman meningkat 2.5% berbanding 3.4% pada suku keempat 2023. Ia disebabkan peningkatan dalam aktiviti perkhidmatan minuman 3.3% dan restoran serta aktiviti perkhidmatan makanan bergerak 2.8%. Muhammad Uzair pada masa sama menekankan bahawa subsektor lain seperti pendidikan 0.8% dan aktiviti hartanah 0.6% juga alami sedikit peningkatan. Selain itu, indeks kesihatan dan profesional kedua-duanya meningkat 0.2%, diikuti indeks maklumat dan komunikasi 0.1%. Ujarnya lagi, perbandingan suku ke suku menunjukkan IHPRP meningkat 0.3% berbanding 0.1% suku sebelumnya. Ia disumbangkan indeks pengangkutan 0.7%, penginapan dan aktiviti perkhidmatan makanan dan minuman 0.5%, pendidikan 0.3% dan kesenian, hiburan serta rekreasi 0.2%. Antara lain, aktiviti hartanah, kesihatan, maklumat dan komunikasi serta profesional catat kenaikan 0.1%.
Kementerian Pengangkutan terbuka untuk perkongsian strategik dengan pihak ketiga atau swasta, tetapi ia perlu dilakukan mengikut cara yang betul. Menteri Pengangkutan Anthony Loke berkata pihaknya tidak mahu ada mana-mana syarikat yang secara tiba-tiba melancar dan mengumumkan penyediaan perkhidmatan untuk jabatan kerajaan tanpa pengetahuan kementerian sendiri.
Beliau berkata demikian ketika ditanya mengenai syarikat tindakan bijak Sdn Bhd yang menjalankan perkhidmatan urus niaga pembaruan cukai jalan kepada orang ramai tanpa kelulusan Jabatan Pengangkutan Jalan Malaysia.
Bukan rakan strategik yang ada perjanjian dengan pihak JBJ. So because kempen mereka kita lihat agresif dan kita bimbang kalau tak ada apa-apa tindakan diambil, mungkin orang ramai keliru. Ini satu perkhidmatan yang ada pengesahan daripada JBJ. So itu kita buat penjelasan. Jadi kalau pihak bijak dia nak bekerjasama dengan JBJ, dia mesti memohon dengan rasmi. So this is something that I'm sure that the companies must come forward and to present a proposal. And if they can convince us to become our strategic partner, then we have no objection to that. But it must go through the process.
Beliau berkata demikian kepada pemberita selepas merasmikan Majlis Pecah Tanah dan menandatangani perjanjian pembangunan sekolah jenis kebangsaan Tamil Castlefield di Puchong, Selangor pada Rabu. Media sebelum ini melaporkan JPJ menerima aduan orang ramai yang perlu membayar caj tambahan ketika memperbarui cukai jalan yang dikenakan oleh BJAK. Tegas JPJ, mereka tidak pernah meluluskan sebarang pengenaan caj tambahan yang dikenakan oleh BJAK kepada pelanggan mereka. Katanya orang ramai digalakkan melakukan urusan memperbarui cukai jalan melalui kaunter JPJ, kios JPJ, kaunter bergerak JPJ Mobile, aplikasi My JPJ, portal awam JPJ dan platform rakan niaga JPJ iaitu Pos Malaysia, My EG serta Puspakom sahaja.
Perbadanan Ekonomi Digital Malaysia (Indeks) memadankan lebih 70 syarikat teknologi Malaysia ke Indonesia di bawah program DEX Connects Indonesia yang bertujuan memperluas pasaran mereka melalui kerjasama dengan syarikat-syarikat teknologi di Republik itu. Menerusi inisiatif ini, Indeks menjangkakan dapat mewujudkan peluang ekspor digital bernilai RM250 juta yang bakal memberikan sumbangan yang signifikan kepada pertumbuhan ekonomi digital di ASEAN. MIMOS Berhad dan G7 Aerospace Sedia Berhad memeterai memorandum persefahaman bertujuan meningkatkan keupayaan integrasi sistem tempatan dalam ekosistem aeroangkasa. MIMOS berkata kerjasama strategi itu menyelahkan komitmen bersama bagi mengukuhkan keupayaan Malaysia dalam teknologi aeroangkasa, memupuk kemajuan teknologi dan aktiviti bernilai tinggi dalam sektor itu. Kontrak keseluruhan bernilai kira-kira RM9.4 bilion dimeterai pada hari ketiga pameran Perkhidmatan Pertahanan Asia DSA 2024 bagi Kementerian Pertahanan MINDEF dan Kementerian Dalam Negeri KDN. Daripada nilai tersebut, pelbagai kontrak yang dimeterai MINDEF sebanyak RM7.3 bilion manakala KDN RM2.1 bilion. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan Astro AWANI.com serta dagannews.com.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan pembelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutama dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Azlina yang hilang 10 tahun lepas.
Kau kerja dengan siapa, Yasi? Jawab!
Kamera mama ni memang something. Orang dalam gambar bawah tu, kita boleh tolong dia orang.
Lepas tu ramai lagi mati. Just because it's showing you what's going to happen doesn't mean you can change it.
Tapi kalau kita tak buat benda ni, kita semua akan mati.
Ini bukan kerja orang biasa. Ini warning.
Frame, stream episod baharu setiap Jumaat on demand dari saluran-saluran berikut.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim is confident that the Malaysian economy will achieve stronger growth between 4 to 5% in 2024.
Among Palestine's top two officials were jointly charged with 161 counts of money laundering, criminal breach of trust and cheating.
Malaysia will experience drier and hotter weather due to prolonged lack of rain in the final phase of the northeast monsoon.
Seterusnya, peminjam Perbadanan Tabung Pendidikan Tinggi Nasional atau PTPTN digesa merebut peluang insentif diskaun bayaran balik pinjaman.
Fenomena equinox menjadikan bumi dan matahari berada pada jarak paling dekat dalam sistem solar.
Malaysia berjaya membanteras jenayah berkaitan dadah bernilai 990 juta ringgit sejak 2019.
Jangan meletakkan harapan tinggi berhubung soal mencari jawapan pesawat Malaysia Airlines MH370 yang hilang 10 tahun lepas.
Ada pengkhianat dalam jabatan kita ni.
Sedap kau makan rasuah selama ni.
Aku tak pakai rasuah.
Jangan percaya polis yang tak makan rasuah.
Sheriff, kini di bawah kamu.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session on AI-powered industries. I'm Vijay Vaitheswaran. I'm the Energy and Climate Innovation Editor for The Economist. It's my great pleasure here to be your immoderate moderator today for our session and to have such a distinguished panel joining us. I'll introduce them in just a moment. But the topic, you really can't swing a cat these days without hitting an AI session or debate or discussion, but we promise you this will take you further than the ones you've been to. That's the aspiration I've set for my experts, to produce some breakthrough insights today. We all know something of a golden age is coming, a golden age of innovation that's going to be enabled by AI. Now, this is not the first time in human history, right? There have been waves periodically. We can look back to the great Victorian Age of invention, for example, nearly a couple of centuries ago, where much of modern chemistry, modern science was invented, often by individuals at that time, working collectively or in competition with each other. But much of the basis of the modern 20th century advances, the internal combustion engine, the modern biology were invented at a time of extraordinary ferment in just a couple of decades that took 100 years to unpack and unfold the value that was created by the basic science. It takes decades sometimes to develop the industries or the technologies like the power grid or the nexus of the internal combustion engine and gasoline, the energy industry that powered a 20th century of mobility, for example. So we're at that early stage where the opportunities will be ahead of us, the opportunities to seize, but as well, false leads and dead ends as well. We'll find that out as well. There are pitfalls aplenty. If AI lives up to the potential that's being investigated today, there are estimates that we could see $2 to $4 trillion additionally in global corporate profits that are added. Potentially could deliver the biggest impact in some sectors like banking or high tech, life sciences. We'll talk about what our experts at the table think about this. And the ways that it might raise productivity have been highlighted by analysts, whether it's interacting with customers or creating content, which of course as a content creator, I'm very much against that particular application. I think we should put that on the side. But nevertheless, software, code, natural language applications, we'll hear much more about this. So dozens of potential applications, but as well, there are pitfalls. We'll hear about those as well along the way. in this particular session, we're going to also try to focus in a little bit with specifics, get down from the 30,000-foot level. Let me introduce our panelists who will get us going here. To my immediate left, Abdullah Fakra, who is the Minister of Industry and Commerce in Bahrain. We have Jean-Pascal Tricoire, who's the Chairman of Schneider Electric. We have Cheryl Tsui, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Bota Biosciences. We have Robert Falk, founder and CEO of Einride, and Simon Freakley, who's CEO of Alex Partners. Give them a nice round of applause to welcome them, get them warmed up. Thank you. And we're off to the races. Minister, let me start with you. Sure. You have thought deeply about this topic in your country. You've already undergone something of a transformation and diversification of the economy, of course, from energy into services, and now you're looking at the opportunity that's being presented by AI. Can you give us your governmental perspective on how you're looking at this opportunity?
Sure, Vijay, thank you firstly for having me here. As you mentioned, Vijay, the government of Bahrain is on its way to being a properly diversified economy. So over the past 20 years, the government of Bahrain has diversified away from the oil and gas sector into sectors which are basic, service-based sectors. About 20 years ago, oil and gas sector made up above 40% of contribution to GDP, and today it's below 18%. And it's no longer the #1 contributor to GDP, financial services is. So financial services, as well as other service-based sectors, such as the logistics, the ICT sector, are playing a more and more important role when it comes to contribution to GDP. And it's these sectors which are well placed to benefit from the AI kind of revolution. So services such as financial services, insurance, legal services, healthcare, cybersecurity are really at the top of our kind of priority list at the government. So AI will do things faster for these sectors. Productivity in these sectors will go up considerably. And as a result, of course, contribution to GDP in turn will go up. But as a government, I think some of our priorities really have been investing in the technology infrastructure to allow businesses to benefit from this wave. And
these are back-end infrastructure investments?
Absolutely, back-end infrastructure investments. And when we see that the return on these investments are significantly higher than other infrastructure investments, there's, of course, a socioeconomical return. And also, we've realized that the importance of being quick to respond when it comes to new technologies and new industries. It's critical that we don't over-regulate, especially when it comes to, for example, AI. But at the same time, because, of course, too much regulation can limit creativity and innovation, but at the same time, keep our finger on the pulse and be aware of what's happening so that we can react quickly to opportunities, but threats as well.
So what's an example of an area of regulation where you have taken some steps? I imagine there's a debate about how far to go with data privacy and nationalization versus global data.
Yeah, so what we did, an example, for example, is we had a cloud-first policy in the government of Bahrain, and now over 90% of all government data is on a cloud, and services are all cloud-based. Bahrain introduced the first data jurisdiction law, which allows, gives sovereign treatment to data. So basically, data stored in Bahrain is treated similar to how an embassy would be treated.
I see.
As only a court in the nation of origin will be able to access that data. And as a result, of course, we saw a lot of demand from companies such as AWS, who decided to set up their first hyperscale data center in Bahrain as a result, of course.
The inexpensive energy had nothing to do with it?
No, I don't
Not
think
at
so.
all.
No.
Okay, all right. Well,
no, it was, and we were able to introduce this jurisdiction, this sort of regulation very quickly. within a few months, which is really what we see as the opportunity.
So agility matters.
Agility is that's it. Yeah,
great. Those are some great examples. Thank you. Thanks for setting us up. Now let's start with an industry perspective. Then, Jean-Pascal, let's turn to you. Your company, our audience will know, has a deep experience with many customers in energy management. You look across sectors, and so. What do you see when we ask this question about the most promising industrial applications as well as maybe some of the challenges? Where do you see the opportunity set?
I would say probably all applications. AI is a big disruptor, but you have to put inside a wider range of technologies or transitions which are happening at the moment. But we're impacted as a company. We are the partner of many companies in the field of digitization, on energy transition. That's what we do, decarbonization of their processes. And when you look at AI, it's impacting us in two ways. And it's a major disruptor. Number one, we are the biggest supplier of energy solutions to data centers. And data centers are booming because of AI. When you change a CPU by a GPU, that energy need is much bigger, right? And today, we started with 0% of our turnover 15 years ago in data centers. Today, it's 20% of our total turnover, $8 billion of turnover that we do every day supplying those energy solutions to hyperscalers, data centers, a lot of them in Saudi Arabia, for instance, as we speak. But at the same time, this digitization is the biggest disruptor to efficiency, the biggest provider to efficiency in smart buildings, smart manufacturing, smart cities, and it brings much more efficiency and much more savings than the consumption which is coming from data centers. So now...
So you actually do believe that it's not just a double-edged sword, cuts both ways. You think one side of that ledger is stronger, the efficiency side?
Yeah, I don't believe. We are doing it every day with our customers, right?
Okay, so, good to hear. Yeah.
So when you put, it's not AI in itself. You have to put it together with other energy other technology transitions. IoT, which is connecting everything, that generating data, big data, which allows you to store a lot of data and work on it. And then software, digital twin on AI that you can only build meaningfully because you've built the rest. Now, in the industrial world, all the customers in this room will recognize that there is no point to do AI if you cannot feed back to the physical world. You cannot improve an industrial process if your machines are not reacting to the insights of AI. So
you need those rapid innovation loops.
Yeah, and all of these are feeding. The more products are connected, the more they generate data. Your AI is as good as the best of your data. This data needs to be structured, and we at Schneider have developed, I would say, the most adopted database for industrial infrastructure, but on industry. But the benefits are in all directions. Like it's energy efficiency, it's productivity, it's worker safety, when you can give insights to your worker with augmented reality or train them without risk because of virtual reality. It's optimizing everything on the shop floor, at the control level, at the level of your factory, across your factories, across your supply chain.
Right.
We use also AI to optimize the flows with our larger ecosystem. So it's absolutely vital that you build that quality of data and then build the algorithm on the capacities on the data. And the best of results you can attain is when you go beyond your own company and you reach out to what we call the scope 3 on all the people, on the actors. So benefits everywhere, but it's not only AI for AI, it's AI connected to the physical world, and it goes into much bigger loop of digitization. And all of this is happening as we speak. So the train is leaving from different stations, and we better board on it.
So and you're on board all these trains, as it sounds like, and you're certainly giving us a sense of that dynamism of the industries you're working with. Although I'm reminded by your point about the need to connect with real data, quality data, the old adage, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So you need to have constant updating and connection with updated information. That's a very optimistic perspective we've been given. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But As you noticed, my distinguished speaker would not select one or two industries to say they're most likely to see the early applications. I want to dig into a case study where I think we can turn to our next speaker, Cheryl. I think you do have a favorite sector where you'd like to see AI have a big impact or already beginning to see it. Can you tell us about the sector you work in?
Yes, I'm trained as a biomedical engineer. And then what BODA does is that we try to accelerate the shifts from the biological design to scale-up manufacturing and to produce sustainable goods. So what we do is that we engineer microbes so it can make chemicals. But being able to engineer the microbes very efficiently, that takes a lot of human intelligence in the past. And then there's a lot of unpredictability involved. And then what we can see is really, we first started the generation of biotechnology with the intersection with the information technology. And then now is to take it to the next level and then really to embrace what AI can contribute to the field. And then for us, the genome language is the language of nature, ATCG, but how much do we truly understand it? And then for the past 2 decades, people have tried, accumulated a lot of data from the Human Genome Project, but that's from human. But there's a lot of organisms that exist in nature, right? But how does that genotype link to the phenotype of the function of the proteins of the organism that enabled certain behavior? That's a big gap. And then I think then, in the next portion, I think all the biologists will turn into information technologists. And then we have to embrace the new technology to enable newer discovery. I think it's the AI for science. It's in a sector where we hope AI doesn't just generate things that exist for us, but able to discover things that we don't know. And I think that's what's intriguing for us in this.
So you sketched out a vision of convergence, really, is what I'm hearing, between the biological world and, in this case, the IT or technological world, very much happening. And you see the potential for accelerating discovery, presumably. Is it drug discovery we're looking at, bioprospecting, or do you see this with health systems data, for example? One could go a lot of different directions here, too. Where do you see some of the promising applications?
I think it's already happening in the whole bioscience industry, from drug discovery all the way to health science data. For the sector we're in is called industrial biotechnology. And then one of the components involved is like enzyme designs. You have enzymes that works in nature. You get it from a biodiversity search. But how can you increase the efficiency of that under certain industrial settings with the temperature, with the pH, and then able to predict the sequence of the enzyme using AIs and with computation biology is where we can make a difference. We already see there's the acceleration of at least 5 to 10-fold from what we can do just from the scientists alone. So every day, I think we're working with an AI companion right now.
Do you have access to all the data you need? There has been a bit of a movement towards open access, open science, open publishing even of scientific reports, but a lot of data is still held behind silos. Am I right?
Yes, yes, definitely. And it's biologist is like a tourist for keeping the data consistently.
Data hoarders, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Cupboards full of your data.
Yeah. And it's actually, I think it's the digitalization that will make a difference, just like in the energy sector, it's the same. So it's how we're able to generate data more efficiently and then able to keep high fidelity data that's able to share across the board. I think that would be really make a difference in the future. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Robert, you come from another industry as well, vertical, innovative startup, mobility, autonomy, all of the cool buzzwords, right? You can dine out for weeks on the cool stuff you've been doing. How do you see this question of the AI opportunity?
Yeah, man, we started with using AI to actually find all the buzzwords for how to create a cool company.
Exactly, and to get the funding rounds,
exactly.
Right? Exactly. You ticked all the boxes.
Exactly. Now, all jokes aside, I think that I see AI as a toolbox. It's like when we invented the steam box, or steam engine. it had literally the potential to industrialize the entire world. AI is a little bit the same. It's the first digital tool that can apply to completely change the way we're working, and in a way, first tool that we have to optimize the digital world. Previously, we have been utilizing digitalization to apply the entire, make the world digital. Now we literally have the steam engine that can propel the entire industry forward. And I think that's where it's also so hard to predict exactly how it could be utilized. But in our industry, we use digital, electric, and autonomous. And what's fascinating with these three technologies is when combined, the more powerful they are by themselves. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to, for instance, digitalize, if you want to go electric for heavy-duty freight, you can't do that without digitalize it. And if you make it autonomous, it's actually a superior business case total. But none of that is doable without digitalization and tools like AI to enable the speed of transitions that are required to make these things happen.
What would you like to see as change in the way that we think about AI, based on your assessment there?
Really, like what already been said here, because it's a continuation of digitalization. It's still the predictional models that's based on the underlying data. That means that if there is no quality of the data, it's no business case what actually going to be achieved. I think that the physical world will be quite unchanged. Because even if you digitalize a factory, doesn't necessarily mean that you become more efficient.
Yep.
It's what you utilize it for that creates the wealth.
Right.
And that's the same for me, with AI as well.
Great. We're going to pick up on that point too, I'm sure, because I heard some comments from our fellow speakers. Simon, coming to you. Your company consults widely with the leading Fortune 1000 companies. So you have an inside perspective on what the C-suite is thinking. When I hear analyst calls, the quarterly results calls that CEOs and CFOs give, this is what we do, journalists at The Economist. We read the transcript. This is our bedtime reading. A few years ago, you couldn't get by without seeing mentions of ESG, for example. Right. Now those are dropped off dramatically, and instead you hear AI. Every company talks about the AI strategy, AI this, AI that. Give us a reality check. What are you finding when you look under the hood? What's actually going on?
Well, thank you, Vijay. And as you say, we have the privilege as Alex Partners as having a front row seat, sitting with our clients as they look at their biggest opportunities and their biggest challenges. But one insight I'd give you is that in the 2024 budgeting round, AI and generative AI occupies about 80% of boardroom discussion and strategy meetings. It occupies about 3 to 4% of their budget line items on cost. And so the amount of thinking time that's going into this is huge. The amount of budget dollars being applied to it are relatively small. Why is that? Well, it's because people understand that generative AI is going to disrupt every company in every industry and every geography. They just don't know quite what it'll mean for them and their company. Now, what we're seeing is that people are leaning into the efficiency plays that AI provide, and we heard earlier from Schneider exactly some of the ways that can be done. So whether it's the efficiency of supply chain or the efficiency of deployment of labor or the efficiency, for instance, of pricing models if you're in consumer products or retail, people are leaning into that because they can see how to do it.
That's a low-hanging fruit, right?
It's low-hanging fruit. What they can't see yet is how AI can drive revenue growth generally. And that's why people are holding back in terms of deciding how to apply their investment dollars.
Just to push ahead on that a little bit further, surely the efficiency plays themselves can show quick payback, right? Presumably that's one way to show additional revenues, even if you're not creating entirely new business lines.
Right.
Are we seeing that yet or not yet?
Yes, and we've all read the examples of efficiency of call centers, the efficiency of business modeling, and those efficiencies are now well documented and obvious. It's just we haven't seen how to drive revenue growth. Not just important, by the way, to drive company performance, but important in terms of dealing with societal issues, growth in economies. You know, with the major economies of the world actually having a shrinking labor force, unless AI can generate efficiencies, how are economies going to grow? And I do think, by the way, that one of our insights is that the gains are going to be through the fusion of artificial intelligence and human capital. So it's going to be the combination of those. That's why I think Microsoft was so smart calling their product Copilot. I wonder actually whether we should have badged artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence.
Right.
It's going to be the fusion of human capital and artificial intelligence that produces much of these gains.
So that raises a very interesting prospect. If we begin to see, I hope it becomes the vision of augmentation that you're talking about, but at least in the first instance, the efficiency will lead to headcounts being reduced, for example, as technology substitutes for humans. We know historically, throughout history, new technologies that have this kind of disruptive effect, in the long run, more wealth is created, potential jobs are created in new, higher value areas. We know that's a long run story. The challenge with AI, it is posited, is that the change is happening much more quickly this time, that the ability of societies to respond at the pace, the human pace of response is slower than the pace at which technology is advancing. If I may come to you, Minister, on this question, because you not only think about the technology, you have a mandate also for the people of your country and the jobs. When you encourage all those efficiency investments and productivity gains, how did that work out in the population at large or amongst your fellow ministers who think about employment, for example?
I don't see a major disruption to employment because, as you said, there would be new industries coming up, while AI will replace, some of the lower value jobs. Some of the higher value jobs will be created as a result.
That's the theory. Are you finding this in practice since you've been pursuing this for some time?
We haven't seen AI being implemented in full scale in practice yet.
So it's early days for you?
It's early days. And I think for everybody. But when we look at, for example, industry, AI will play an important part in industry. But most of factories or many factories are already automated. So the high value jobs we foresee in industry specifically will remain. The major impact is possibly going to happen in the service sort of industries. But as I said, we feel confident that there would be new emerging industries which will come up and create, as a result of the growth in the global economy, of course, new sectors, new industries will create new opportunities and new jobs. So definitely there will be a shift.
Does someone else want to jump in on this particular question about the human impact of the pace of change? Yes.
I think AI is actually solving one of the issues that we have today, which is the speed of deploying things. I'm speaking about the energy equation, where 1 year ago in one panel, I think in Versailles, the world needs to go at least twice faster on energy efficiency. What we need are people able to implement and intervene in buildings, in industries, in cities to make it happen.
Right.
When you use AI and you apply it on the chillers, on things, you will get a saving of 20 to 30%. You will be warned of issues before they happen. When at Aramco, we work together to deploy predictive analytics on 2,500 rotating machines, soon to be 10,000. That means we are putting on the monitoring for uptime, avoiding breakdown, outages, accidents, but we are also allowing people to intervene much faster or much more precisely on things. That's number one.
So predictive maintenance, but the next generation of it?
Yeah, no, the existing generation of it and working on the next, but that means you avoid tons of outages and potential accidents which would have huge consequences thanks to that. We do that on buildings, on chillers, we say that, and so on. Then AI is taking a lot of boring jobs like visual inspection on production chains, where it's difficult to find operators. Let's not fool ourselves. Not many people want to work on the shop floor. Those things are getting automated with a better result because machines are pretty good at doing those repetitive recognition jobs. So I think we are solving actually a problem of labor shortage. Coding, for instance, automation system is highly facilitated by AI. And today you don't have enough operators to do all the things that you guys are needing on the shop floor. So there is the sort of some jobs are disappearing, but there is the fact that we are resolving a massive problem of competency and labor shortage all around the world.
So that's, I want to come to you, Simon, because you have a global perspective on this. The story I just heard, very exciting story. I wonder if the idea of labor shortages, of substitution, the boring jobs maybe being done by AI is more relevant in developed economies, where in emerging economies where you have a demographic boom in many countries, sub-Saharan Africa, in India, South Asia, whether there are people looking for those factory jobs, and we may see what economists have called a premature deindustrialization, a trend that people are worried about. Right. That is, you can't have the China effect again for India or China. We'll come to you both.
Let me just build on JP's point. Yeah. I mean, I think that you know, if you look at any of the major sort of developments, whether it's the wheel or the plough or the printing press or the steam engine or the internet, none of those have resulted in a massive drop-off of employment. So I don't think that AI is going to be the exception. I don't think this will result in mass unemployment. This dystopian view that somehow we'll all be out of a job, I think, is just wrong. I think the labour shortage question is key because as demographics show a shrinking working population in developed economies, I think this is going to be a way that we can drive growth, notwithstanding that. But your question about developing economies, take India, for instance, now the most populous nation in the world. It's the most digitally enabled nation in the world. Over 95% of the population of India now have digital identities. In Europe, it's about 35. In the US, it's maybe about 34. The point of the story is that a massively growing workforce, but digitally enabled workforce. So I think that actually it's going to be a boost to digitally enabled developing nations rather than an inhibitor. And of course, what we're all seeing in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is just a massive investment going into making sure that many of these opportunities are leading edge.
So there's a potential for leapfrogging if you do the right investments in infrastructure.
There's absolutely a potential for leapfrogging. I think that the short-term issue, which is quite different to the long-term issue, is that much of our current workforce do not have the digital skills to be relevant in a fast-changing marketplace, and that is a challenge. And the responsibility for that upskilling is with the individual, the company, and every government. But in the successive generations that will have those skills, I think we'll find that unemployment will not be an issue.
Great. Robert, you wanted to come in on this?
I think one of the things that makes this technology slightly different is that historically efficiency gains has been done in the labor segments. That means that quite often that I wouldn't say unskilled labor, but that has mostly been where we utilize robotics for and so on. The area we're going into now with AI is that potential to replace a lot of middle class jobs. It's lawyers, it's computer programmers, it's high skillful, well-paid jobs. So the impact from society's perspective wouldn't be felt not necessarily in the blue-collar labor part, but in the middle-class economy. So in a way, it has the potential, if not used properly, to increase the Piketty effect.
That's, yes, please jump in, Cheryl.
Yes, I want to bring a different perspective other than the efficiency increase.
Sure.
I think in our field, this will really enable unparalleled creativities. I think that's something quite different because right now, as how the discipline is structured, people are so specialized in their own areas, like chemist, a biologist, like process chemistry, like each have its own discipline. And then it kind of become a barrier for innovation. And then what we see AI, because of the knowledge structure is so different from human, like education, it become a generalist in many disciplines. And then you would enable some of the specialized researchers, or like you would say like the I'll use biologists as an example, have a cohort of chemists and then programmers working for it to enable its ideas. I think that's kind of the beauty of AI that would open up something other than just the labor efficiency aspect of things, but bring some novelties and innovations to the world. Yeah.
That's a very powerful and beautiful idea. We know from the history of innovation that many breakthroughs came because not the expert in the specific subject, but someone with an adjacency.
Exactly.
One or two steps away, comes and looks at a problem orthogonally and has the breakthrough. And so it's interesting if AI can open up that potential that really could be transformative, not just a step change, not linear, but rather a step change increase.
If I can build on that, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I add to that, the things that AI brings to operators, workers, creators, as you say, is huge. I'll take the example of our customers. They have people going on the shop floor of factories, dangerous processes, opening the doors of electrical substation. So the nightmare of anybody, including me, is waking up in the morning and knowing that there is an accident that took place. Now you've got people going around with AR goggle or tablets that tell them before they open a machine or before they approach it, every digital parameter of what is happening and telling them what to do and what to avoid. The number of accidents that you can avoid with that is huge. Speak about generative AI. We do with our customers digital twin from the design to the build into the operation. Before it was engineers trying to design on its 3D models, and we do shipbuilding, we do refineries, we do chemical plants. Now, generative AI proposes you scenario, proposes you simulation to optimize things, proposes new things that people didn't think about. So I think one of the stakes of AI is actually to democratize AI. So the things we are working on at the moment is low-code, no-code AI, so that everybody can prompt some functionalities, which today is not obvious. You have to call specialists to do it.
Right.
The second thing is use Gen AI to formulate your requests in an intelligible manner. Before you were saying, you were programming things, now you say, tell me if my windmills are working properly today. And you're going to have a report of all this, and it's going to come naturally. On the ultimate goal, which we are already doing, is AI working in parallel of people. You don't want to manage a microgrid, right? To make sure that it's the greenest, the cheapest sort of energy, except exceptions, and the AI should call you at that time. But you want it to run naturally. And it's tons of parameters that you have to integrate. Before, we are making causal systems, which were a lot of programmation. Now that works by itself, which frees a lot of time for operators to do the added value things. I think a few elements, but never forget all the other benefits, which are far beyond efficiency, safety of workers, uptime and reliability of your application. When you go in a hospital like here, we work with Salman Habib Hospital, priority is reliability. When you go into a surgery room, you don't care about energy efficiency. You want no outage. Those are things that digitization and AI allow you to ensure.
So both of you have made a great case to keep that open mind about the potential for transformation. I want to come back to a topic that I promised that I would return to. Jean-Pascal, you had previously put on the table the energy consumption of AI and also argued about the efficiency gains, and you argued one would be outweigh the other. I want to give others a chance to weigh in who may have a different perspective. As we know, this is one of the hottest topics. I was recently at the main energy conference in the world in Houston, where this was the top issue, the energy consumption and guzzling of AI. People like Sam Altman, an AI pioneer, is investing in nuclear power. He thinks that's the only long-term solution. But of course, there are big debates about how much more energy will be needed. I know you've thought about this, Robert. What's your perspective on this?
I think that I'm just very glad that there's also this kind of awareness, because I'm a big believer that AI has a huge potential to be one of the most game-changing tools that we have in society. But if that's going to be fully deployed, it needs to be in parallel. And back to what you said about ESG, for me, the question about the climate change can take the back seat, because if AI becomes the dominant driver in business, then suddenly we're going to miss the opportunity to actually take responsibility for stopping the climate change. And for me, it's just good that we have that discussion where we can actually utilize AI for the energy efficiency gains, and that we actually use this tool to become and create a better society. And that discussion requires, for me, awareness. And if you go back 2-3 years, no one realized the fact that we needed to build a huge data center to generate AI. And now people start to see that's going to cost a lot of energy. And I think that what kind of ships we're going to choose is going to depend on how much the energy they consume. But I just want to be sure that we create a society that is sustainable, because we can't have a literal society where the AI stops working because the wind is not blowing. That's not a smart way to do it either.
Well, you point me to a question I want to direct to the Minister. You happen to be in a part of the world that's blessed with natural resources, both of the hydrocarbon kind, but also wind and solar resources aplenty. We just have to step outside to discover it very quickly. What do you think about this, the energy consumption of AI, and could it be turned to your advantage? Could we see this become a source of advantage for regions like this part of the world because of the access to inexpensive energy, that you become a cluster, and maybe even related industries? We see a new map of industrialization where both with the AI-related industries, but perhaps hydrogen, green hydrogen, other things that are energy intensive might actually begin to come here from other parts of the world.
I think that's already happening. I think, but I think it's an important point to recognize. It's good to have ambitious goals and targets, but we need to look at how we will get there. Of course, investment in AI and cloud computing and new technologies require big amounts of energy. How will we get there is an important question. I think the region, yes, is well placed, not only because of their natural resources, but also because of their progressiveness and their keenness to invest in new technologies and infrastructure. And so I think absolutely it's a kind of an opportunity for I would say the GCC or the GCC region to benefit from the trend towards AI.
Simon, you talk to a lot of industrial companies, including ones that are restructuring. Right. There is this discussion, particularly in Germany, about potential deindustrialization or a new map of industrialization that could emerge because of where clean energy is coming up. How seriously should we take that discussion if we zoom ahead a couple of decades? Are we really going to see traditional industries move to where the energies of the future are, or is this something you think fundamentally that's not going to happen, that politics will intervene, won't let it happen?
So I think that absolutely energy transition will be key to all agendas. But you mentioned Germany. Germany, of course, is comprehensively being reimagined industrially. The automotive industry, which has been core to the German industrial machine, is being recreated on the back of transition to electric vehicles, autonomous driving. Not maybe a transition happening as quickly as people thought, but it's happening. What we're finding from our client work is that the winners in AI are the people who have the best data, not the people that have access to the best large language models. And so interestingly, in 2023, $150 billion was spent developing large language models, and that there are now quite a number of first-class models. But the people with the best data are going to be the winners. So you think about what that means in financial services, think about what that means in healthcare, not just what it means in automotive and industrial nations. I think as people understand how to deploy their data for commercial advantage and then work out what the consequent impact is on energy consumption and how they set it up for success is going to be at the core of those discussions.
That's very interesting. The old adage about the gold rush in California, the miner 49ers they were called, was the only people who made money for sure were those who sold the pickaxes to the miners, right? But I wonder, in this case, maybe we should flip that analogy. These AI tools are the pickaxes. We're focusing on the companies making them, but the money is still where the gold is, so which is the data.
Interestingly enough, if you look at Hewlett-Packard, for instance, which had a recreation of its own, or look at Dell, which has had a massive recreation of its own, their biggest opportunity may yet be coming, because actually the infrastructure to support all of this analysis and data storage and processing is going to be where a lot of the money is going to be made. They may be the new pickaxes.
There we go. I'm going to turn to the audience if we have time for a quick question or two. Anybody want to jump into the breach with a challenge or a question for our experts? If so, let us know. We have microphone runners who will come around. I apologize, I can't see people behind me. But if not, I want to put one thought while we're waiting for any potential questions from the floor, and that is that counter-argument to the energy-intensive narrative, right? That in fact, because of the efficiency opportunities, the innovation opportunities, but also when we actually look at early forecasts of the internet, if we go back a couple of decades, there were respectable forecasters who said it's a few percentage of global energy now, but this is going to be 20%, 50%. The entire economy will be taken over by the energy consumed by all these newfangled internet computer things. Of course, they were wrong. It's not because the internet didn't proliferate, it's because, of course, there was a vast resource of efficiency that came to how we computed, and that it isn't a static resource. Nowadays, it's being discussed as Jensen's law, right, in terms of the ability for the chips themselves to become more efficient, but the ways we organize our searches can be more efficient. So I want to put the challenge to my experts here that, in fact, we will find a replication of what happened with initially with the internet itself, that yes, of course, there'll be some initial disruptions and need for additional energy, but especially because the big tech companies that are pioneers in this area have committed to net zero emissions, and they've been pioneers in promoting power purchase agreements and so on for green energy, that they're actually creating the conditions for a clean energy revolution and efficiency revolution, that they could kickstart a couple of other ancillary areas, not directly related to AI, but actually that could have very positive and pleasing effects in energy, in climate, and sustainability. What do people think of that? Am I too Pollyannish? Am I too hopeful?
Can we put some simple figures?
Sure.
In that?
Sure.
The whole of IT industry represents 2% of the whole energy consumption.
Yeah.
The application of digital on any process, smart buildings, smart homes, smart manufacturing, smart city, brings, in average, from what we can see, and we help our customers save 100 million tons a year, brings 20 to 30% of energy efficiency. So 2%. On the worst projections say it might double, which is certainly exaggerated. We think it's going to go 2 to 3, on bringing 20 to 30% savings on 98% of the consumption. So I think what you are saying is a technology that disrupts completely the old way of doing and brings a higher level of efficiency. On the top of it, you're right, the hyperscalers and the data center operators are the most active today to look for green energy. And they leverage a resource they have in data centers, which are batteries also.
Right.
Because to support the process in the data center, you have storage. And you can use that to manage the volatility and the intermittency of energy. So that it's never one technology alone, it's multiple technology. And I leave you with that next thought.
Very brief.
Is that as we get to the cloud, the next stage is AI on the edge, on your phone, on every machine, because if you do that there, it's faster, less latency, data remains here, and energy consumption can be divided by a huge factor. So just the beginning also of the architecture.
Pascal, thank you. You get the last word. You brought us to the vision of ubiquitous edge computing, energy light, massive potential gains. And that's a terrific vision. Now, it's a robust conversation. We, of course, did not glide over the challenges, whether it's a culture, the governmental challenges, as well as having to do with organizational culture and committing resources to it, and the data openness. So there's challenges aplenty, but I think you'll agree our experts gave us a very insightful and deep look into the potential for opportunities for industry. Please give me a round of applause for my experts. Thank you all very much. And we thank you for joining us. If you're to tweet about this, please use #SpecialMeeting24. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.